It was just another Friday night. I was babysitting for the Johnson family, and everything seemed normal. The kids were asleep, the house was quiet, and I was curled up on the couch with a book. But then, I heard it. At first, it was faint, just a soft creak, like someone stepping on an old floorboard. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make noises, right? But then, it happened again, and again. Each time it was a little louder, a little closer, froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound was coming from the hallway. Slowly, I turned my head, my eyes scanning the darkness. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving across the wall. It was tall, too tall to be one of the kids, and it was coming closer. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My body was frozen in place, my mind racing. What was it? What did it want? The shadow stopped just outside the living room, and for a moment, everything was silent. Then I heard it, a low, guttural whisper, like nails scraping against glass. "You shouldn't be here," it said. My blood ran cold. I didn't know what to do. Should I run? Should I hide? Before I could decide, the shadow stepped into the room. It was tall, impossibly tall, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its face was a blur, like static on an old TV, and its eyes glowed like embers in the dark. I don't remember how I got out of there. One moment, I was on the couch, and the next, I was running down the street, my lungs burning, my legs trembling. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of my own home. The next morning, I called the Johnsons to check on the kids. They were fine, they said. Nothing had happened. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. I never babysat again. To this day, I don't know what that thing was or why it was in the house. But sometimes, late at night, I hear that same whisper. You shouldn't be here. And I can't help but wonder, is it still watching me? Thank you for joining me in the shadows. If you're brave enough, there's another story waiting for you. But be warned, this one might just haunt your dreams. Stay close. The night is far from over. It was supposed to be the perfect weekend getaway. My best friend Jake and I had been planning this camping trip for months. We were exhausted from work and needed a break from the noise of the city. So we packed our gear, loaded up Jake's car, and headed to the Whispering Woods, a remote forest about 2 hours from town. The name alone should have been a red flag. Locals called it the Whispering Woods because of the strange sounds people claimed to hear at night. Stories of ghostly voices, shadowy figures, and campers who never returned were common. But Jake and I, we laughed it off. Ghost stories were just that. Stories. Right? The first day was incredible. The woods were beautiful, with sunlight streaming through the trees and birds chirping in the distance. We hiked for hours, found a perfect campsite near a small clearing, and set up our tent. As the sun set, we built a fire, cracked open a couple of beers, and joked about how quiet it was. "Whispering Woods, huh?" Jake said, smirking. "More like snoring woods. This place is dead." I laughed, but as soon as the words left his mouth, the air around us seemed to shift. The fire flickered, and the temperature dropped suddenly, like someone had opened a freezer door. I remember feeling a chill crawl up my spine, but I brushed it off. It was just the wind, I told myself. Then we heard it. At first, it was faint, a soft, almost melodic whispering, like someone was murmuring just out of earshot. I glanced at Jake, and he was already looking at me, his brow furrowed. "Do you hear that?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, sounds like voices." We both fell silent, listening. The whispers grew louder, more distinct, but I couldn't make out any words. It was like hearing a conversation through a wall, just fragments of sound that didn't quite make sense. And then, something about it changed. The tone shifted, becoming darker, more urgent. It felt like the voices were trying to tell us something or warn us. "Okay, this is weird," Jake said, standing up. "Let's check it out." I hesitated. "Check it out? Are you serious?" "Come on," he said, grabbing a flashlight. "It's probably just the wind or some animal. Let's put your ghost stories to rest." Reluctantly, I followed him. We walked toward the edge of the clearing, the beam of the flashlight cutting through the darkness. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, echoing through the trees. And then, as we stepped into the woods, they stopped. Dead silence. "See?" Jake said, turning to me. "Nothing to worry about." But before I could respond, the flashlight flickered. Jake smacked it a couple of times and the beam steadied, but something was wrong. The light didn't reach as far as it should have. It was like the darkness was swallowing it up. And then we saw it. About 20 feet ahead, standing between the trees, was a figure. It was tall, way too tall, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its head was tilted to the side, and even from a distance, I could feel its gaze on us. The air around it seemed to warp, like heat rising off asphalt, and the whispers started again, louder this time, almost deafening. "Jake," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What is that?" He didn't answer. He just grabbed my arm and pulled me back toward the campsite. We didn't run, not yet. But the moment we turned our backs, the figure moved. I didn't see it step forward, but I felt it, like the woods themselves were closing in around us. By the time we reached the tent, we were both shaking. The whispers were everywhere now, overlapping, chaotic, like a crowd of people screaming in different languages. We packed up as fast as we could, but the trail we'd followed earlier was gone. The trees seemed to have shifted, their branches twisting together to block our path. And then the figure appeared again, closer this time. That's when we ran. We crashed through the underbrush, our flashlights bouncing wildly, the whispers turning into screams that echoed in our ears. I could feel something chasing us, something fast and relentless. My heart pounded in my chest, and my legs burned, but I didn't dare look back. When we finally burst out of the woods and into the parking lot, the screams stopped. The figure was gone. We sat in Jake's car, breathing heavily, too shaken to speak. Neither of us mentioned what had happened on the drive home. But the whispers didn't stop for me. Even now, weeks later, I hear them. Soft at first, just a murmur in the back of my mind. But they're growing louder, more insistent. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I catch a glimpse of that figure in the corner of my eye, tall, spindly, and watching. I don't know what it wants, or why it followed me out of the woods, but I do know one thing. The Whispering Woods aren't just a legend, and whatever lives there, it's not done with me yet. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chilling tales. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you heard the whispers? Until next time, stay curious, but be careful where you wander. The shadows are always watching.